As a kid, you grow up wanting to be just like your dad. I know my dad's robbed banks before, so I was like, yeah, let's rob a bank.
Every year, over 3,000 banks are robbed in the U.S. by someone who sees a shortcut to make all their problems go away.
Lewis Sr. came here to rob banks. And what better than to bring your son in with you?
But first, they'll need to plan the perfect heist.
When I work at a bank, I know how to do it. If you're gonna rob the bank, you want the vault.
It's unusual that someone got to the vault, which is inside of a grocery store.
That's when it all went bad.
I pulled a gun. I'm like, oh shit. But you know what? It all worked. We were gonna rob as many TCF banks as I had inside knowledge about.
We thought he might be staying in places where somebody traveling might be staying.
Some say being smart makes you cocky. It does. It really does. So this is one of the houses I grew up in as a kid. I remember playing on the porch. Kitchen's in the back. My room was right there. At that time, I don't really know where my real dad was. It was my mom, me, my sister, my two younger brothers. And then my mom got with my stepdad, Tony.
Growing up, my brother was always looking for guidance. I think we both were. I think we both were always looking for just that male figure in our lives. And my brother didn't have it. My mom and my stepfather fought all the time. It was confusing as a child, not understanding, well, you have this man in our life and all this chaos, but then you don't want our father.
Their father, Lewis Sr., the man is a genius. And he can be a very charming person. That's part of the con, though. He was a con artist. He could charm you right out of your clothes. He was spending all our money, getting us in debt. I found out he was cheating on me, and it sickened me. And that was the end of it. I was done. He left for New York when Lou was 2. No, we didn't see him again.
When I would get in trouble, which is a lot as a kid, it was always, you're just like your father. I had no contact with him at all. Yeah, it affected me. Up in the head. I wanted to know who he was. Like, I had questions.
At one point, his father did call, asked if he could see the kids. I told him I didn't think that was a good idea because he was a bad influence. He had already robbed his first bank, had already gone to jail for it. After that, I believe he was involved with extortion, prostitution. He had gotten into drugs. I didn't want my kids exposed to that. I did keep them away from him.
I understand why she did what she did. She felt she was keeping us away from that. But at the end, I don't think it was her choice to make. And then later on, when I was probably like 15, 16, he was supposed to come see us. And I remember it was a Sunday. I didn't want to go to church because I'm like, oh, my dad's gonna be here. No, you gotta bring your ass to church. Got home, he's not there. There, no calls, no nothing. Don't hear nothing all day. Then he had some lady call us. Said that he was stuck in San Antonio. on a layover and that he'll call us soon.
When my brother realized that my father was lying, he started crying. I'd never seen him cry.
That's when it all went bad.
I was real mad at him. Guess you really don't give a about me. I felt like he abandoned me again. And I lost it. Oh, I lost it so bad. But I didn't have nobody to call or talk to, or I didn't trust nobody. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I guess you could say I did things out of retaliation. I went off the deep end at that time. I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have. Drugs, drinking. Yeah, I was doing cocaine, I was popping pills, and I was out of this world up.
He was even smoking crack at the time. He was selling it and doing it. He ended up getting in trouble, bringing drugs back and forth between Texas and Louisiana.
Lou ended up spending 3 months in jail.
I just got out of jail. I'm like, I need a job. I'm not just gonna be a bum. But it's like, because of that arrest, I couldn't find a job anywhere. And there was a chance meeting in a grocery store that helped me change my life around. TCF Bank is set up inside of grocery stores. So I'm opening the account and this girl comes up to me. So I'm just bullshitting with her and, oh, you guys hiring here? She's like, yeah, you can come work, blah, blah, blah. I put in an application, but I didn't really think anything of it. And I got a call. And she's like, well, we're gonna offer you the assistant manager job at this amount of pay.
Kind of noticed a big change in him. He had his own apartment. He was the bank manager at a TCF bank. He had a nice car, it was paid off, no car payment. He looked like he had a steady income and like he was doing real good.
And then one day, completely unexpected, my dad was on the news.
Today, charges have been filed against Lou and Nate Early for robbing a bank in New York.
Kind of shocked me to see my real dad. He's on the news, he robbed the bank, he's wanted. I'm like, you f***ed up, he did this, he did that. I knew if something was bad, it was gonna happen, but I didn't want to focus on that. So I was just out living my life. And then one day, I opened my phone up, and as soon as I turn on, it's my real dad calling me. And he's like, hello? I'm like, hello? He's like, who's this? I'm like, who's this? He's like, it's Lou. I'm like, this is Lou too. There was a hatred in me that I kind of wanted to curse him out, but like, it just kind of like went away. There was like an awkward pause, and I was like, so what's up, bro? Where you been? And we kind of had a conversation. I was just like catching up with somebody I haven't seen in a whole long time. And then he was like, you know, I'm not the best father. I made some mistakes. I just got out on probation. I got in some trouble. I don't want to go back. I'm going on the lam. He's like, I want to come out there and see you. So I'm like, come on. I'm not going to tell my dad, well, go turn yourself into prison. I went to go meet my dad for the first time. As a kid, you grow up wanting to be just like your dad. Wanting to be just like him. There was no uncomfortableness. It was just like two friends who haven't seen each other in forever, just picking up and going right at it, you know? I wanted him to perceive me as tough. I want him to think I'm like some bumbling crybaby who missed his dad all these years. I want him to see I'm a grown man now. What's up?
Lewis Sr. came here to rob banks.
Say, all right, we're gonna go rob a bank, and then we'll rob yours. I'm like, okay.
I went up and said, hey, this is a robbery.
So I'm sitting there like, what if the cops show up?
Hey everybody, I'm Carrie Champion, that is Jamel Hill, and we are Black women.
How many shows on TV feature two Black women whose opinions are driving the show? We like funny, we like opinionated.
And you always have to be able to leave me thinking,
Right.
You mean to tell me if LeBron tests positive for COVID, they gonna tell us? The hope in this show is to talk about everything that is uncomfortable, because that's the only time you have real change.
Carrie and Jamel stick to sports. New series premieres Wednesday, August 19th at 10 on Vice.
I finally just met my dad, and when I got to know him, I felt like I kind of discovered part of me. I discovered what I'd been missing for those years. He had this grand plan. He wanted to open banking accounts and basically write hot checks from one to the other, float them back and forth. He's like, I can get a couple grand. I remember just driving around thinking like, man, why are we wasting our time? I know my dad's robbed banks before. Why doesn't he just do it again? This time I work at a bank, I know how to do it. I brought it up to him. I'm like, I work at a bank, I know what to do. I didn't want to lose him. I didn't want him to go back to jail. I was like, gotta rob a bank, then let's rob the bank.
This call is from
Louis Early.
an inmate at a federal prison.
It wasn't his idea at all. It was mine. I would come up with grandiose schemes and just act on them. I was ripping and running, doing whatever I wanted. Incredible amounts of drugs, liquor, trips, different women, whores. We got about 30 seconds left. I should have never got him involved in or mixed up in it. Bye.
I really didn't care if I got caught. I was 26 years old. I didn't have a wife. The girlfriend I was with at the time, I didn't even care to be with her. To be honest with you, the biggest attachment I think I had in my life was I wanted it with my father at the time. So if you get caught, you know, at least it was you trying to help your dad out. So I was like, it, let's rob a bank.
I want to say prison. I have learned to facilitate the robbery. There's 4 basic things. 1, never show a weapon in a bank. You don't want to display or use a gun, ever. The first one is 5 years consecutive, and then it goes 25 consecutive for every count. 2, never go over the counter. If you go over the counter, it's a takeover, and now you're talking 25 years instead of 5 or 6. 3, never strike or touch anybody. If you do, it's an assault. It's never 5 years. And 4, never tell anybody in the bank to move from one place to another. It's also a great way to get a hell of a lot more time.
I think the whole reason Lewis Sr. came here was to rob banks. That was his life. You know, he had done this before, so he knew what to do. And what better than to bring your son in with you, in his eyes.
So we just started talking about robbing my bank and the other TCF banks in the area. We were gonna rob as many TCF banks as I had inside knowledge about. The bank was inside a little shopping center. Right here when you walk in through those doors, this is where the branch was. My dad, he's like, you ready for this, kid? I'm like, hey. He's like, you sure? We need a test run first. I'm like, what? He wanted to make sure that I was being serious about robbing a bank. He's like, all right, we're gonna go rob a bank, and then we'll rob yours. I'm like, okay.
This call is from
Lewis Early.
an inmate at a federal prison.
Wasn't a test. It was a matter of getting a bundle of money real quick. His took a lot more planning and timing, depending upon his work schedule, mapping out getaway routes. Logistically, a big difference.
So we drove around looking for another bank. Then I found the Fifth Third. The reason why it was a good target was its location. There was a street adjacent to it where I could park, where he could just jump in the car, and we could take the side streets to be back at my apartment in 2 minutes without being caught. It was perfect. Working at the bank, you go through security trainings. So you know the ins and outs of if you get robbed, what you're supposed to do. So I knew firsthand, they're supposed to follow your orders to a T. They say, don't push that panic button till I leave. They're not supposed to push that panic button till you leave. If you tell them don't give you the die packs, they're not supposed to. Robber might come back and kill you for disobeying an order. You're not trained to be heroic to save the day. No, your life is more important than money that's federally insured. So we sat down and went through over all this.
Now, at the time I'm on the run, we had agreed that after we did the next bank, we were going to go to Vegas, blow the money basically, just kind of stay together. But first of all, we had agreed that my son was responsible for getting us in and out of there. He was the wheelman. He kept the car running, and I went in.
It's hard to explain the feeling. Definitely nervous. I overthink things all my whole life, you know, so I'm sitting there like, what if the cops show up?
It was 2 offices, 2 tellers, bank management. I went up and said, hey, this is a robbery. It looked like an FBI agent or two that came streaking by us.
I was just praying that none of it exploded. Some say being smart makes you cocky. It does.
So we're here in Baghdad.
We're in Moscow.
Washington.
Chicago.
Mexico.
Flint, Michigan.
Damascus. Chernobyl.
Italy.
There's always going to be resistance to change.
Seriously, no.
I think it's become so politicized.
You politicized it.
All these people have died of COVID-19.
What is it that you want the rest of the world to see happening here?
Vice News Tonight, Monday to Thursday at 11 on Vice.
Let's go. Move. Open that drawer. Give you 150s. Don't give me any die packs.
Oh, man, it seemed like forever. There was a million thoughts racing through my head. Did they catch him? Did he get locked into the bank? Is there a security guard with a gun in there that shot him?
They set the money up on the counter. And right out. 45 seconds, maybe a minute tops.
Once I seen him walking and there was nobody behind him following him, I was like, okay, we got away with it. He jumped in the car and he's like, drive. Got it? Everything okay? He's like, yeah, just go, just go.
As we were leaving, the alarm went off. looked like an FBI agent or two that came streaking by us.
And I was flying. I don't think I stopped at any stop sign. And I just remember looking in the rearview mirror the whole time, looking over at him as he's going through all the money. Because he really had it just all stuffed in his jacket, and he was pulling it out, going through it. And I'm like praying that none of it exploded. There was no dye packs. I'm trying to drive, and I'm like checking the money, and when I seen it was like one of those GPS tracking bundles. So I grab it, and I'm like playing with it. I'm like, yeah, there's some hardened. And I opened the window and just chucked it out the window. We counted the money out. It's about 10 grand. I took 2 grand, gave him the rest.
We split up and went out to a strip club. Picked up one of the girls that worked for me in an escort service, and then another girl that I knew. Went back to the hotel. Stayed until about 5 in the morning.
After we robbed that bank, I needed help. So I brought my car to Gino, my younger brother. Hey, what's up? I said, Gino, listen, take this envelope.
At the time of the night, I did think it was a little strange.
Okay. Clean the car. I was like, wipe everything down, bleach, vacuum it, do whatever you need to do. Just clean it better than you clean anything in your life. I'll call you when I'm gonna pick it up. Yeah,
Everything all right?
Yeah.
Try to ask him what's going on, is everything okay? But he kind of just brushed me away. The money he gave me, I thought it was actually income tax money for our mother. I put it up in a shoebox and hid it in my closet. I did what he wanted me to do, like any brother would.
There was a sense of, okay, good. We got away with this one, but he's still here. Now I got more time to spend with my dad. Let's see what else we can do.
After a few days, we went to the second bank. He said, "You ready?" I said, "Yes."
We went to Radio Shack and got some police scanners for when we robbed my bank. Some say being smart makes you cocky. It does. It really does. Because I had it planned to a T, and I knew for a fact that I wasn't gonna get caught. This is basically the layout of the bank. Well, the next couple of days were spent talking about the plan. He was gonna be parked over here at the restaurant. I called the day before, made up a story like my car was parked outside. Somebody hit the car and drove off. Do you guys have security footage? They're like, sorry, unfortunately, we don't have cameras. So I was like, okay, well, we could park the car there. After that, I told my father, come in, I'll be working at the teller line. You should come when I'm closing. It's gonna be me and one other teller. You don't wanna walk up to the teller and rob the teller. The teller's only got 6 grand in her drawer at most. I'll have money ordered from the Federal Reserve. If you're gonna rob the bank, you want the vault. Say you have to open an account, I'm the manager, so I have to let you in the office. Then we can just do a little show for the camera. Talk to me and act like you got a gun. You ain't even gotta say nothing, there's just a camera there. We'll be in the vault, and I'll just open the safe with my keys, put all the money in your bag. Once you get the money, Dad, just tell us to sit down and then you can leave. Now what happens is I have to press a panic button, the security company is gonna call, and then they gotta notify the police. So what I'll do is I'll count in my head what I think is enough time for you to get to the car. And by the time I push the button, you should be driving off. By the time the security company calls, you'll be long gone. We won't have to worry about any of that. I think I picked the gun up the day before the robbery.
Walked up, just went in.
It's unusual that someone got to the vault inside of a grocery store.
Well, I did everything in my power to hinder their investigation. If they catch me, they're gonna have to kill me.
City to city, coast to coast, Donkmaster Sage Thomas races his cars.
We got 1,000, so what'd you get? I want about $30,000. That's my job. I gotta put kids in college.
American classics, works of art, built for speed.
Donkmaster good. I want to take him down.
We running at high rate of speed, so anything can happen.
Donkmaster. New series premieres Wednesday, August 19th at 10:30 on Vice.
The day before the robbery, I just happened to be out one day eating lunch, and there was a gun shop. Well, I'm looking around, looking what they have, and there was like this little firearm. The guy's like, oh, it's a collector's item. I was like, oh, really? I'm like, I want it. And I bought the gun. What happened was, my dad took the gun with him because he had this grand plan, like, if they catch me, I'm gonna shoot it out, they're gonna have to kill me. He didn't rob the bank with the gun, he didn't need it. And it was just in case something happened afterwards.
This call is from a federal prison.
I had to get my hands with a fingernail polish so that there would be no fingerprints left. Walked up, just went in.
What happened was I was working, standing on the teller line, and I watched my dad walk in right through the door. And I was like, okay, here we go.
Virtually zero customers there. He was behind the counter with one of the tellers. I went up and he brought me into his office, which was adjacent to the wall. I said, this is a robbery. Just cooperate. He closed the door and into the wall. Instructed them to empty the money into the bag. No dry tags, no marked money.
I just gave him the bills. I made sure he got the bulk of it.
I told him to count to 200 before you do anything. Well, I had a police scanner with me. If you call anyone, I'm going to need you to get hurt. And I left.
He left with all the money. He had talked about stopping at the apartment and leaving some cash there. But then he was like, well, what if they come to your house for questioning and find money? So it's like, I don't care, you know, take it. So he left with 60 grand.
Checked into a hotel. We had agreed that I would call him later that night. And we knew that the FBI would be interviewing him.
I work out a small satellite office of the Chicago division of the FBI. I work all the violent crimes, including bank robberies. And the detectives called me and asked me to come out to the bank robbery in Wheaton, Illinois. It's unusual that someone got to the vault at a TCF bank, which is inside of a grocery store. Interviewed several witnesses. Lewis Early, he actually started crying uncontrollably when I interviewed him, which I found very unusual. Being a big guy, I had never seen that before.
When like the police and everybody came, I knew what questions they were gonna ask from training. I did everything in my power to hinder their investigation. I mean, I'm like crying, put on this whole story about, oh, can I do my job? I should have did something. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay. That night, my dad calls. We had a code where he would call and I'd be like, did you order a pizza? It was basically our way of knowing it was free and clear to talk. Did you order a pizza? And I was like, no. And he's like, oh, okay. I was like, no, I'm just with you, yeah. He's like, don't do that, kid. I told him it all worked. It all worked. He was supposed to send a MoneyGram. We sent the money, but he used my brother's name instead. You know, he was smart. He's like, you don't want to go to BNC and pick up $1,000, $2,000 after your bank was just robbed.
Lewis told me, you have a MoneyGram. They need you to go pick it up as soon as you can. I did what I had to do. I believe it was $1,500. He told me to give him $500. He told me I can keep the $1,000 and do whatever I want with it. I had no idea where the money was from, so I spent it on me and him.
I was running again. I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going to get jammed up on this. Decided to go see if I could find Anna, the girl I had been involved with since I came through upstate New York. She had texted me and asked me she was at her sister's house, but her sister wasn't going to be there. I told Anna, if I've got all this money, that's thousands of dollars. Went inside. Got blown. She then got a text on her phone. She said, oh, my sister is coming back. She wasn't supposed to. Let's go down to the city. Let's go get a hotel. I said, fine. We went out, stepped off the porch, turned back around, and I saw somebody coming from behind me. The whole plan blew up.
$51,000 worth of cash.
I look out my apartment window and I seen a cop car out there. He didn't listen.
They told me it was Lewis Early.
I'm like, oh shit.
Hey everybody, I'm Carrie Champion, that is Jamel Hill, and we are Black women.
How many shows on TV feature two Black women whose opinions are driving the show? We like funny, we like opinionated.
And you always have to be able to leave me thinking,
Right.
You mean to tell me if LeBron tests positive for COVID, they gonna tell us? The hope in this show is to talk about everything that is uncomfortable, because that's the only time you have real change.
Carrie and Jamel stick to sports. New series premieres Wednesday, August 19th at 10 on Vice.
I got hit with a pipe. I pulled a gun. He took off running. I was flabbergasted. And then I realized this bitch trying to rob me. But they didn't get away with any money. About 4:35 in the morning, went back to her house with the intention to be sure. So I see her car out front, and I completely trash her car. Wreck it. Went back, booked in a hotel, and I was exhausted. I've been up maybe 2 or 3 days.
Our sheriff's office received a report from a young lady in the village of Port Byron. She had been menaced with a handgun and some damage to her car. Looking at the phone records, I determined that the suspect that we identified as Lewis Early and began searching where the suspect might be in relation to where his cell phone was utilizing cell phone towers in the area. We narrowed that down to about a half-mile radius. We thought he might be staying in places where somebody traveling from out of the area might be staying. It didn't take us long to find his car at the Red Roof Inn.
When we entered the room, Mr. Early was asleep at the time.
Hands where I can see.
We noticed a bag that contained a significant amount of U.S. currency, $51,000 worth of cash in that bag, along with a loaded handgun.
The whole plan blew up. Just stupid. The bricks of $100 bills were all already packaged, and I just never opened them.
All that money I told you I had ordered from the Federal Reserve, well, when you get money from the Federal Reserve, you gotta count it, verify it, sign off on it, stamp it. There's the straps with my name and initials on it. I told him, like, Dad, make sure you rip all these off and throw them away. That's the only thing to trace the money back to you. They're not gonna trace the serial numbers, it's the straps. He didn't listen.
I get transported back to Cayuga County. Then I wait about 6, maybe 8 hours, and the FBI comes in. They said, listen, we're going after your son. I said, no. So I ended up entering what's called a blind plea. I found documents saying that I robbed both banks, and that I possessed a gun.
We knew what the serial number of the gun was. We went to the sporting goods shop where he bought it, he being the junior Early, Louis Sergio Early.
I was sick. I wanted to kill Louis Sr. for what, involving my son, but then Lou was grown and he makes his own decisions. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that Lou would do something like that, Lou Jr.
My life was just normal. And then Friday, I went to work at the bank, got off, went home, and I took a nap before I was going to go to work at the nightclub. Doing security, the bank job didn't pay enough. I was sleeping, and I wake up, I look out my apartment window, and I seen a cop car out there. And I see my phone, and it's a text message from my regional manager. Wheaton bank robbery in custody. I'm like, oh shit.
I called my brother and I was like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, nothing. I was like, oh, okay. I remember asking him, hey, have you talked to Dad lately? I can't talk about that, I gotta go. And I'm like, hold on, why are you acting weird right now? Right there, I knew, okay, alarms.
I kind of panicked. I go out the other entrance, drove around the back of the building, drove over the grass, and I went straight to the club where I was working security. Walked in and went and found Andre, the nightclub manager. Andre's like a father figure. I love him to death. The way the place is set up is there was a bar and a nightclub. Me and him were in the nightclub. And I was like, I need to talk to you.
I'm like, Louis, what did you do?
We robbed the bank. And he's like, what?
I was really disappointed. I knew that it wasn't gonna end pretty. It wasn't gonna end right.
Louis Early Jr. He was working at a nightclub. I had an arrest warrant for him.
The FBI was at the front door, and they were looking for Louis. All the thoughts went in my head. I'm like, no, no, no.
The FBI agents, they did the good cop, bad cop. I was like, listen, I'm not answering any more questions. Either charge me or leave me the f alone.
My brother was facing some serious time.
Today's headlines: a father and son accused of robbing a bank together have had charges filed against them.
I think I really wanted to believe that nobody would ever do that to their son intentionally.
He lied, he sold me up this river, he's a piece of shit, f him.
About 30 yards from here, there's a solid wall of riot police officers.
If they hurt us, I'm gonna do something back. I'm not gonna just take it.
Police are firing tear gas down the street.
I'm pressed.
Our blood still being spilled. We can't take a knee. We can't protest. What do you want us to do?
Vice News Tonight, Monday to Thursday at 11 on Vice.
The FBI agents, they were like, you know why we're here? My regional manager said you guys got the bank robbers. Do you know who he is? I'm like, no. You sure he's got the same name as you? What? Hey, Louis Early. I'm like, wait, my dad? Are you serious? Like, I don't know my dad. Like, he left when I was a kid. And they were like, you lying to us. He told us everything.
We had found the father wired money to a half-brother. Louis Early Jr. was upset by it. He at first denied anything, and then when we talked to him a little bit about what we had found, he admitted that, yes, I received the money.
Now my brother's involved. So I'm freaking out. No, leave Gino alone. He has nothing to do with this. I'm like, all right, well, I'll plead guilty, whatever you want. Just leave my baby brother out of it.
A father and son accused of robbing a bank together have had charges filed against them. According to police, on March 18th, Louis H. Early walked into the TCF Bank in Wheaton where his son was working as the bank's branch manager. Louis S. Early loaded cash into a bag for his father. Police also suspect they may be responsible for a robbery in Naperville.
And so then when I went for sentencing, the judge, he was like, do you have anything to say? I'm like, yeah, I want to tell my family I'm sorry I let you guys down again. Like, Gino, I'm sorry I brought you even into this. And the judge is like, your dad put you in this situation. I'm like, I hate him right now, and it sucks that I'm in this, but you know what? He's still my dad. I still care about what happens to him. I got blessed. He gave me 24 months.
I wasn't facing anything. I look back at it as, I wish he never did it. I know it wasn't a long time, but I lost him for 2 years, and it was terrible without him those times. I didn't talk to him much. It was rough. Like I said, I just wish he never did it.
It was a relief that it was only 2 years, but to think of my son in prison scared the hell out of me. It was very heartbreaking. We were all crying. If it hadn't been for that gun, Lou probably would have gotten probation and never would have went to a federal prison.
Judge sentenced me 100 months for both of the banks, and I got a 60-month consecutive term for having a weapon. Not using it or displaying it, but just for simply having it. I feel horrendous that I basically destroyed his life. I'm trying, and I will try to do everything I can to make him whole and to atone for what I've done.
I'm not about that life anymore. People make mistakes in life. When I was young, I was dumb. Doesn't mean that's the type of person I am. I feel I paid for it, and I'm moving forward. I'm doing better things in life now, helping others, so that maybe they don't make the same mistakes I did. I'm currently trying to get a law degree. There's inmates I've helped get their sentences overturned, clemencies. I've helped my aunt with her eviction, helped a friend of mine get custody of his son back. Whatever people need, I try to help them with. In 5 years, I'd like to have my own office, own law practice. And my father, well, he's bad, but no. Since I've been out of prison and being able to see him frequently and talk to him daily, we've developed it's a stronger bond than I've ever had with him before.
I think I've learned now that I'm not going to sabotage anymore. I owe that to my son, my grandson, my daughter Tiffany, to everyone.
One thing that my brother is so passionate about is being there for his son, especially because we didn't grow up with our dad.
Yeah, I have one child, he's 5, he'll be 6 in December. I've taken care of him every day since he was born. I always said I'm gonna have a son and I'm gonna give him my name. So my son is Louis Sergio William Early II.
I got 5 big.
He's a great father. And I think his son is what keeps him on the straight and narrow now.
Uh-oh. It's got in my eye.